Nevada is burning in 7 places at once. The Wildfire in White Pine County, Quail Springs Down in Lincoln, Mouse Meadow in Nye at 52,000 acres, New Pass in Churchill, the Stallion Fire in Washoe County, which went from a 5-acre report to more than 40,000 acres in under a week, a new start called Shoshone that came in yesterday and is still open, and the Bug Fire. The Bug Fire was reported on the afternoon of August 8th at about 50 acres. 8 days later, it has burned 94,000, an area larger than the entire city of Reno, and its southern edge sits above Cold Springs, on the northern doorstep of the Reno metro area. 4 of those 7 fires have each burned more ground than the city of San Francisco. Almost none of it is timber, it's sagebrush and grass, and the 2 largest fires on that list with a determined cause both started with a person. So there are 3 things worth understanding. What is actually burning, in a state with almost no forest, why it moves faster than the equipment sent to stop it, and whether there is any reason to expect the next one to be smaller. The answer to the third question is the one that should bother you. Start with where the Bug Fire began, because it's a detail most of the coverage skipped. It didn't start in Nevada. The point of origin sits about 2 miles west of the state line in Lassen County, California, roughly 4 miles northwest of Cold Springs. Then it ran east. By the time the perimeter was mapped, close to 9 out. Of every 10 acres inside it were in Nevada. Around 82,000 acres in Washoe County alone. From the air, there is no line out there. Same basin, same soil, same fuel bed running for miles in every direction, and the fire treated the state boundary the way it treated everything else. It didn't slow down, which is the part that doesn't translate if you've only seen fire in a forest. A crown fire in timber is slow. It's violent and it's terrifying, but it moves at the pace of the trees. It has to climb, preheat, build. A wind-driven fire in cured grass doesn't build. It arrives already at full speed. Flame lengths might be waist high. The rate of spread is what beats you. On flat fuel with wind behind it, a front can outrun an engine on the 2 tracks that exist out there. Which means there's no getting in front of it, and no flanking it either, because the flank is 12 miles long and lengthening while you look at it. So crews did what you do. They pulled back, protected what had a structure on it, and waited for the wind to lie down. It took a complex incident management team, more than 800 personnel, and roughly $13.5 million to get it to 76% contained. And almost none of this made national news. That's not an oversight, it's a measurement problem. This country counts fire damage in structures lost and lives lost, and by that, accounting a 94,000-acre rangeland fire is close to a non-event. No town, no evacuation footage. Run a different accounting and it looks nothing like that. Inside that perimeter were grazing allotments that ranching families have run for generations, and the standard response after a burn like that is to rest the ground for 2 growing seasons before livestock come back. 2 years of forage, gone, for operations that don't carry 2 years of slack. Inside that perimeter was sage grouse country, a bird that cannot live anywhere else, and inside that perimeter was the sagebrush itself. Tens of thousands of acres of a shrub that took most of a century to grow. The number in the headline was acres. The real unit is decades, which raises the question of whether any of it had to happen, whether a fire that size and that fuel is simply what the Great Basin does. It isn't, and the strangest evidence for that is sitting inside the burn scars themselves. When researchers go back into large Great Basin fires and map what recovered, they keep running into the same thing, and it is genuinely hard to explain. Take 2 pieces of ground inside a single fire perimeter. Same fire, same week, same wind pushing across both of them. Close enough in burn severity that you couldn't pick them apart on a map. When one of them comes back, native grasses green up the following spring, wildflowers return, sagebrush seedlings start appearing from the unburned edges, and within a couple of decades that ground is recognizably sagebrush country again. The other one doesn't. Within a single season, it's a solid stand of thin annual grass, and it is still a solid stand of thin annual grass 10 years later. No shrubs returning, no trajectory toward anything else, same fire. 1 piece of ground survives. The piece next to it becomes a different ecosystem permanently. The obvious explanation is luck. The fire ran. Hotter in one spot, the seed happened to land right. That is not what the evidence shows. The difference between those 2 sites existed before the flames arrived. Neither of them was decided by the fire. Both were decided years earlier by something you could have walked out and looked at. It's what was living in the gaps between the shrubs. Picture intact Great Basin sagebrush from above. The shrubs are not touching. They stand apart, with open ground between them, bare soil, some of it crusted over with a living mat of lichen and moss, and on healthy sites, deep-rooted native perennial grasses growing in separate clumps. Those clumps matter twice. First, they're discontinuous. Flame that starts in one gets to the edge of it and runs out of anything to burn. That's the reason the historic fire interval out there was so long, Researchers generally put it somewhere between 50 and 100 years for the drier sagebrush types, not because ignitions were rare, because the fuel was broken. Fire could start out there all it wanted. It couldn't travel. Second, and this is the part that decides what happens afterward, those perennials survive being burned. Crowns and roots persist underground, and the following spring they come back and take the water first. Ground that still has them holds itself against whatever tries to move into the burn. Ground that already lost them can't. And an enormous share of the northern Great Basin lost them a long time ago. The long tail of an unregulated grazing boom in the late 1800s that stripped the perennial cover off millions of acres before anyone was measuring it, which left the gaps open, and something arrived to fill them. Cheatgrass came out of Eurasia in the late 1800s, most likely in contaminated grain and packing straw, and it spread across the Intermountain West faster than anyone was tracking it. It's an annual. It germinates in fall, grows roots through the winter while the natives are dormant, sets seed in late spring, and by the middle of June, it's dead. An ankle-high carpet of fine, cured fuel, arriving exactly when fire season does. That's the whole mechanism. Cheatgrass fills the gaps. The bare ground that used to stop a fire at 10 acres is now covered. Shrubs that used to stand apart are wired together by a fuel bed that carries flame to every one of them. The landscape didn't get more flammable in the sense of burning hotter. It got more flammable in the sense of burning continuously. And continuity is the entire difference between a 50-acre report and 94,000 acres in 8 days. What crews were facing north of Reno last week wasn't an unusually intense fire. It was an ordinary rangeland fire with nothing in its way. If that were the whole problem, it'd at least be a stable one. It isn't because of what happens after the fire goes out. Big sagebrush does not resprout. Unlike the trees and shrubs of fire-adapted forests, it has no underground bud bank, no thick bark, no fire-triggered seed release. Fire kills it outright. It comes back only from seed. That seed doesn't travel far, and the seedlings need a run of good years to establish. Cheatgrass has none of those constraints. Its seed is already in the soil. It germinates the first fall after the burn into a seedbed the fire has just cleared of competition. So the year after a fire, the shrubland isn't recovering, it's being replaced. And the replacement burns again. In cheatgrass-dominated ground, the fire return interval collapses from 50 or 100 years down to something on the order of 3 to 5. Each burn kills more of the surviving shrubs. Each burn kills more of the surviving perennials. Each burn widens the annual grassland and shortens the wait for the next one. That's the loop. It isn't a metaphor, it's a feedback system with a direction. The direction is one way. Every fire out there makes the following fire easier, which means the bug fire isn't really a single event. It's the current expression of a process that's been building since before anyone alive was born. If you want to know where that loop ends, Nevada already has the answer, about 200 miles northeast of where the bug fire is burning. In July of 2018, a fire started in Humboldt County, north of Paradise Valley, in the same fuel type burning right now. It ran north and east into Elko County. Nothing stopped it. No river wide enough, no rock, no change in fuel, because the fuel was the same for 40 miles in every direction. In roughly 6 days, it burned about 435,000 acres, an area larger than the city of Los Angeles. It remains the largest wildfire in Nevada's recorded history. The bug fire is not that fire, and it's worth being precise about the difference. It's about a fifth the size, and it got caught. The 2018 fire is what this fuel does when the wind holds for 6 days. The bug fire is what it does when the wind quits. Different scale, different outcome, same problem underneath both of them, which brings up the explanation most people reach for. At this point, and it's incomplete in a specific way. The obvious read is that none of this is really a Nevada story, that it's the local edition of what everyone's been watching in California and Australia and British Columbia. Hotter summers, longer seasons, a West that's simply become more flammable. And warming is genuinely part of it. Fire seasons in the Great Basin have lengthened. Fuels cure earlier in the year. The number of days with fire-carrying conditions has climbed. All of that is real, and all of it makes everything else worse. But it doesn't account for this particular mechanism, and the distinction is worth holding on to. A cheatgrass landscape does not need a record-breaking year to produce a record-breaking fire. No heat dome, no decade of drought, it needs an ordinary August, and a wind. The bug fire didn't happen because the weather crossed some new threshold. It happened because the threshold came down to meet an average summer, which reframes everything before it. The variable that changed in the Great Basin isn't the climate, and it isn't the number of ignitions. It's what grows in the gaps. An ankle-high carpet of annual grass, standing where bare soil used to be, is the difference between a fire that stops at 40 acres and a fire that stops when the wind does. Seen that way, the two sites inside the burn scar stopped looking like luck, and a 50-acre report becoming 94,000 stops looking like an anomaly. So the useful question stops being why this happened and becomes what's still reachable. The Great Basin isn't one landscape with one answer. It's a gradient. At one end is ground that's already converted. Shrubs gone, perennials gone, seed bank owned by cheatgrass. Restoring that is technically possible and extraordinarily expensive, and success rates on the driest sites are low enough that it's generally not where the money goes. That's the ground already lost. In the middle sits most of the region. Sagebrush still standing, cheatgrass established underneath it, waiting. This is where treatment actually works. Fuel breaks along road corridors so crews have somewhere to make a stand. Targeted grazing to knock the annual grass down before it cures. Herbicide to hold germination back while perennials go back in. At the far end are the intact cores. High enough, cool enough, perennials still holding the gaps. These resist invasion on their own, and federal assessments estimate the country is losing well over 1 million acres of them every year. The thing worth noticing is the direction. Every step along that gradient costs more and returns less, which means the leverage was never in restoration, it's in never needing it. And that puts an unreasonable amount of weight on something that takes about 4 seconds. Everything described so far took generations to build. The grazing that opened the gaps happened in the 1800s. The grass that filled them has been spreading for over a century. The loop that shortened the interval has been tightening since before most of us were born. The ignition takes a moment, a chain dragging behind a trailer, a hot exhaust over dry grass, a spark off a piece of equipment on a shoulder somewhere. The bug fire was human-caused, so was the stallion fire 40,000 acres away, in the same county in the same week. A problem 150 years in the making is still being triggered over and over by something that happens in seconds, which makes the cheapest intervention in the entire system the fire that never starts, none of which changes what's already burned. 8 days, 94,000 acres, an area larger than Reno, 9/10 of it in Nevada, in a place with almost no trees and almost no cameras. What burned there wasn't scenery. Greater sage grouse are obligate on sagebrush. They nest under it, shelter in it, and through the winter they eat almost nothing else. Take the shrub off 80,000 acres and you haven't degraded the habitat, you've removed it. And the birds don't have a second landscape to move to. Ranching families lost forage they can't buy back, on allotments that will come back as grass that cures in June. And the sagebrush is gone on a timescale that doesn't fit inside a human life. The stands that burned in those 8 days had been standing since before most of the roads were. What regenerates it all will do it slowly on the wetter and higher ground over decades, if it gets that long. That's the part the acreage never tells you, not how much burned, how much time the ground needs against how much time it's going to get. A shrub that takes a century to grow, standing in a fuel bed that now burns every 3 to 5 years. The Great Basin will keep burning. It always did. What changed is that it no longer gets long enough between fires to become itself again.